The Shadows of Maplewood Estate. In the summer of 2021, my family sought a break from our busy lives in Chicago. We rented a quaint Victorian house in Maplewood, a small town in southern Illinois, surrounded by lush green hills. The air was filled with nostalgia, a perfect escape from our screens. The home was charming, with creaky floorboards and a sprawling garden. My wife, Sarah, and our two kids, Lily and Max, were excited as we settled in, unaware of the unsettling events ahead. The first few nights were peaceful. The kids explored the dusty attic, while Sarah and I enjoyed tea on the porch, reminiscing about our love story. But as days passed, a heaviness settled in the air, a sense of being watched. I dismissed it as fatigue. After all, it was an old house. One evening, while playing board games, I noticed a flicker in the hallway mirror. The reflection shimmered, as if someone were just out of view. "Did you see that?" I asked Sarah, who was engrossed in the game. "See what?" she replied, not looking up. "Never mind," I muttered, shaking my head, convincing myself it was just a trick of the light. Later that night, as I turned off the last light, I heard a faint whisper echoing from upstairs. It sounded like my name, pulled through the dark like a haunting melody. I brushed it off as imagination, but then I heard unmistakable footsteps, soft, deliberate, pacing above me. "Kids, are you up there?" I called, but the house remained silent. Hesitating, I climbed the stairs, my heart racing. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows around me. At the top, the hallway was empty. I checked the kids' room. They were asleep, blissfully unaware. I stood there, skepticism wavering. Probably just the wind, I told myself, but unease lingered. The next day, I confided in Sarah. "You're just tired," she said, laughing. "Old houses creak. It's natural." I wanted to believe her, but strange sensations multiplied. Lily claimed she saw a figure in the garden, a woman in white who waved at her, disappearing when she blinked. Max insisted his toys moved on their own. "Dad, I swear, the soldier was standing by the window!" he exclaimed, eyes wide with fright. "Come on, buddy, it's just your imagination," I reassured him, but doubt gnawed at me. That night, the whispers grew louder. I lay in bed, trying to dismiss them, but they wrapped around me like fog. "Is someone there?" I whispered, feeling foolish. The response was chilling silence, followed by a child giggling, echoing down the hall. I shot up, heart pounding. "Sarah, did you hear that?" I called, my voice a whisper. "Just the wind, Dave," she replied, irritation in her tone. "Can we please get some sleep?" But sleep eluded me. I wandered through the house, drawn by the sounds. As I passed the attic door, it creaked open slightly, revealing darkness within. Against my better judgment, I stepped inside. The air turned frigid. The scent of decayed wood filled my lungs. A low hum resonated. I felt a tug at my sleeve and turned to see a young girl, no older than 8, with hollow eyes and a sad smile. "Help me," she whispered, her voice like brittle leaves. Before I could respond, she vanished, leaving a lingering chill. Heart racing, I stumbled back. The next morning, I sat with Sarah at the kitchen table, trembling. "I think something's wrong with this house," I admitted. "I saw a girl in the attic." "Dave, you're exhausted. Stop letting your mind play tricks," she said, concern in her eyes. Still, dread lingered. That evening, I decided to confront the odd happenings. I set up my phone to record in the attic, hoping to capture something to explain my experiences. As night deepened, the whispers returned, clearer now, urging me to listen. "Help me, help me," echoed around the room. I turned the camera toward the corner where shadows gathered. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and a gust of wind swept through the attic, knocking over boxes. In the chaos, I glimpsed the girl once more, her expression twisted in anguish, reaching out to me. Then, silence. The video showed nothing but darkness and my breathing. A chill crept up my spine. Was I losing my mind? Later, I shared the recording with Sarah. "See, nothing is there," she said, disappointment evident. But I felt something more, lurking beneath the surface. On our last night as we packed, Lily ran down the stairs, pale-faced. "The lady in the garden is gone!" she cried. "Maybe she found peace," I suggested, but doubt hung heavy. As we drove away, I glanced back at the house, its windows reflecting the setting sun. I couldn't shake the feeling we were leaving something behind, an unfulfilled promise, a silent plea. Months later, memories linger. Were they figments of our imagination, or did the shadows of Maplewood Estate harbor secrets reality could not explain? The line between the known and unknown blurred, leaving us, and perhaps the girl, lost in uncertainty.
I had always been a skeptic. Life in our suburban Ohio home revolved around the mundane: work, family dinners, and weekends filled with soccer games and movie nights. My wife, Laura, and I enjoyed the predictability of our routine, even if the thrill of adventure often felt distant. Our two kids, 10-year-old Sam and 8-year-old Lily, filled our lives with laughter and chaos, grounding us in our normalcy. One late October weekend, we decided to take a family trip to a nearby cabin nestled in the woods. The place was quaint, with creaky floorboards and a fireplace that beckoned us to gather around. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, I felt an inexplicable unease settle around us, like a chill that lingered longer than the evening air. "Dad, can we tell scary stories?" Sam asked, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Sure, why not?" I replied, trying to suppress my own unease. After all, what could really happen in a cabin in the woods? That night, as we huddled in front of the fire, I shared tales of ghostly encounters. Laura chuckled, rolling her eyes. "You don't really believe in that stuff, do you?" she asked, her voice light, but her smile faltering slightly. "Of course not," I replied, but deep down, my resolve felt unsteady. Later, as the kids drifted off to sleep, Laura and I sat on the couch, the crackling fire creating a cozy ambiance. Just as I was about to nod off, a loud thud echoed from the kitchen. My heart raced. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, my voice barely cutting through the silence. "Probably just the wind," Laura replied, though she didn't sound convinced. I got up, the wooden floor groaning beneath my weight. The kitchen was dark, the only light coming from the moon spilling through the window. I glanced around, expecting to find something innocuous, but then I noticed the chairs. They were inexplicably moved, one pushed out as if someone had just sat there. "Laura," I called, anxiety creeping into my voice. "Come here." She joined me, her expression shifting from sleepy annoyance to genuine concern. "What happened?" "Look at the chairs. They weren't like this before." I felt foolish, but there was an unsettling feeling gnawing at me. She inspected the scene, her brow furrowing. "Maybe the kids were playing earlier?" I countered. "Sam and Lily are asleep. There's no way they could have done this without waking us." As we stood there, a soft whisper floated through the air, barely discernible but unmistakable. "Help me," it murmured, sending shivers down my spine. "What was that?" Laura's voice trembled. "I don't know," I managed, but it sounded like it came from the hallway. We ventured cautiously toward the dimly lit corridor, the air thick with tension. My logical mind raced to find explanations. Old pipes? A draft? But with each step, the dread grew heavier. Suddenly, a door slammed shut at the end of the hallway. We both jumped, exchanging wide-eyed glances. "Did you see that?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Laura nodded, her breath hitching. "It's just the wind, right?" "It has to be," she insisted, though her eyes betrayed her. We retreated back to the living room, trying to shake off the feeling that we were being watched. The fire crackled, but the warmth felt less inviting. As the night wore on, I kept hearing faint voices, just on the edge of comprehension, like echoes of a long-lost conversation. "Did you hear that?" I asked Laura, who was now curled up under a blanket, eyes darting nervously. "Maybe it's just your imagination," she suggested weakly. "You always did have an overactive mind." But as we finally turned in for the night, I felt like I was on the brink of understanding something hidden, something lurking just beyond my sight. The next morning, the kids woke up bright and cheerful, as if the night's events hadn't touched them. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself it was all in my head. "Just a bad dream, right?" I joked, but my heart wasn't in it. "Did you see any ghosts, Dad?" Sam asked, his voice tinged with excitement. "Not even close," I lied. As we packed to leave, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye. A shadow moved, fleeting yet distinct, just beyond the cabin's window. My heart raced as I turned, but there was nothing there, just trees swaying gently in the breeze. On the drive home, the kids chattered away, oblivious to my unsettled state. I replayed the events in my mind, questioning what was real and what was imagined. Laura caught my distant gaze and sighed. "You're thinking too much about it, aren't you?" I admitted, though deep down, I felt the cabin had offered a glimpse into something we couldn't fully grasp. Back in our familiar home, everything felt the same, yet somehow different. The walls felt thicker, the shadows deeper. Late at night, I'd still catch myself listening for whispers, wondering if they were just echoes of my thoughts, or something more. As days turned into weeks, I couldn't shake the feeling that our cabin stay had changed something within me. A door opened to a world I once dismissed. I often found myself staring at old family photos, uneasy with the thought that perhaps some stories were meant to be believed. And as I drifted into a restless sleep, I couldn't tell if the soft voice I heard was a figment of my imagination or a plea from a realm I had never known.
We lived in a quiet suburb of Ohio, in a modest two-story house with a white picket fence. My wife, Clara, our 10-year-old son, Ethan, and I had settled into a comfortable routine. I worked as an insurance adjuster, while Clara was a part-time librarian. Ethan was your typical curious boy, full of energy and questions about the world beyond our neighborhood. One cool autumn weekend, we decided to visit a nearby state park. We packed sandwiches and a thermos of hot cocoa, eager to enjoy the crisp air and colorful leaves. As we hiked along the trails, Ethan chased butterflies, his laughter echoing in the stillness. That's when things began to feel off. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows among the trees. Clara and I walked ahead, chatting about everyday life, when Ethan suddenly stopped. "Do you see that, Dad?" He pointed toward a clearing where the trees parted. I squinted but saw nothing unusual. "It's just the light, buddy. Let's keep moving," I said, brushing off his concern. Yet I felt a chill that wasn't just from the autumn air. That night, after we returned home, I woke to whispers from the living room. The clock read 2:17 a.m. I crept out of bed, heart pounding, and peeked around the corner. The room was empty, but the old grandfather clock, a family heirloom, ticked loudly, its pendulum swinging ominously. I shook my head, attributing it to late-night anxiety. The next evening, Clara and I sat on the couch after putting Ethan to bed. "I swear I heard a voice last night," I confessed, trying to gauge her reaction, like someone was talking in the living room. "Just your imagination," she replied with a slight laugh, though there was an edge to her voice. "You've been stressed with work." "Maybe," I muttered, but unease settled on me like dust. It was the same feeling I had during the hike, a creeping sensation that something wasn't right. Days passed and strange incidents began to pile up. I found Ethan's toys arranged in peculiar patterns, like miniature figures frozen in time. The family photo on the mantel tilted unnaturally, no matter how many times I straightened it. She dismissed it as a draft. I began to doubt my sanity. One afternoon, I was working at my desk when I heard a soft thud from the kitchen. Hesitating, I ventured in. The chair at the table was pulled out, as if someone had just gotten up. Clara was upstairs and Ethan was at a friend's house. I swallowed hard, looking around, but only silence met me. "Clara!" I shouted, feeling foolish as my voice echoed off the walls.
No response. When Clara returned home, I told her about the chair. She laughed again, but this time it felt forced. "Maybe you should get some rest," she advised, glancing uneasily around the kitchen. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the whispers still echoing in my mind. Suddenly, small footsteps padded across the hallway. My heart raced as I darted out of bed. "Ethan?" I called. Silence. I tiptoed down the hall, the floorboards creaking beneath me, each sound magnified in the dark. I reached Ethan's door and pushed it open. He was sound asleep, curled up under the covers. I sighed in relief, but as I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of something, a shadow darting down the hall. I spun around, but there was nothing there. A chill raced down my spine. Over the next weeks, Clara and I continued to experience unexplainable occurrences, items vanishing only to reappear in odd places, a persistent cold spot in the living room, and those whispers that seemed to follow me. Ethan, perceptive for his age, began asking questions I didn't have answers to. "Is there a ghost in our house, Dad?" he asked one evening, eyes wide with curiosity. "Of course not," I replied, though doubt crept into my voice. "It's just your imagination." "You're lying," he said, a serious look crossing his face. "I heard it too." I exchanged a glance with Clara, who looked as equally unsettled. "Let's just forget about it, okay?" I suggested, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy, but I felt like we were losing grip on our reality. One night, I was working late when I heard a loud crash from the kitchen. I rushed in, heart racing. Dishes were strewn across the floor, and the lights flickered ominously. I could swear I felt a presence, a weight in the air pressing against my chest. Just then, a voice, soft yet commanding, whispered my name. "Mark." I stumbled back, breathless. "Who's there?" I shouted, but only the hum of the refrigerator answered. Clara found me a few minutes later, pale and shaken. "I felt something," I confessed, trembling, "like someone was watching." "What do you mean?" she asked, question and disbelief mixing in her expression. "I don't know, it's like this house is alive," I replied, overwhelmed with dread. As days turned into a blur of confusion and fear, we decided to seek help. We contacted a local paranormal investigator. When she arrived, her eyes scanned the house with unsettling intensity. "I can sense something here," she said quietly, standing in the living room. "A presence tied to this place." "What kind of presence?" Clara asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Something unresolved," the investigator replied, looking at me pointedly. "It could be a memory, a feeling, or something more." As she began her work, I felt a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Was this theatrics, or was there truly something at play? The investigators set up equipment, took readings, and asked questions into the empty spaces. I could hardly focus. My mind raced with possibilities. Days turned to weeks, but the events intensified. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision, and the whispers grew louder. Even Ethan began to act strangely, drawing pictures of a dark figure standing in our hallway, staring at him with hollow eyes. Finally, one night, I confronted Clara. "We have to leave," I said urgently. "This place isn't right." Clara looked at me, fear and understanding in her eyes. "What if it's all in our heads, Mark? What if we're just creating this?" "Or what if it's not?" I countered, the reality of our situation weighing heavily. That night, as we prepared for bed, I felt a deep sense of foreboding. The air felt charged, as if the house itself was holding its breath. I lay in bed, listening to the whispers, shadows creeping across the walls. In the morning, I awoke to silence. Clara and Ethan were already up, sharing breakfast at the table. I joined them, but the atmosphere was tense, as if we were all waiting for something to happen. "Did you hear that?" Ethan asked, suddenly, looking up with wide eyes. "It's back." I glanced at Clara, who looked as just lost. "What do you mean?" she asked, voice shaking. "The voice! It's here!" Ethan whispered, staring into the hallway. As I turned to face the darkness beyond, the air thickened with anticipation, leaving me unsure if the whisper was real or just another figment of our imagination. As shadows danced in the dim light, I knew not if we were haunted or if we were merely haunting ourselves. The Echoes of Cedar Grove. The Johnsons were a family of rational thinkers. Sam, a schoolteacher, often led discussions about science over dinner, while his wife, Laura, a nurse, found comfort in the concrete realities of her daily life. Their two children, Emily and Jake, thrived in this environment, excelling in academics and sports, firmly grounded in what could be observed and measured. Last summer, they decided to take a week off and rented a quaint cabin in Cedar Grove, deep in the woods of Oregon. It was charming, with worn wooden beams and a fireplace that crackled invitingly. The family arrived with excitement, ready for hikes and evenings filled with stories around the fire. On the first night, as they settled in, the atmosphere felt oddly serene. Laura noticed it first. "Does anyone else feel like the air is just thicker?" she asked, brow furrowing. Sam chuckled, dismissing her concern. "It's just the trees, Laura. We're surrounded by nature. It feels different, that's all." As the evening progressed, the cabin seemed to whisper. The rustle of the leaves outside morphed into soft voices, just out of comprehension. Jake, engrossed in a video game, glanced up. "Did you hear that?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Hear what?" Sam replied, still focused on his book. "Like some kind of talking," Jake insisted, eyes wide. "It's just the wind," Emily offered, though her voice lacked conviction. The next day, while hiking, the family stumbled upon an old cemetery, hidden behind a thicket of trees. The gravestones were worn, some barely legible, but one caught Sam's attention. An inscription from 1892 with the name Thomas Whitaker etched into the stone. "That's interesting," he remarked, jotting down the name in his notebook. "I wonder what happened to him." That night, as they prepared for bed, a chill swept through the cabin. The usual sounds of the forest faded, replaced by an eerie silence. As Sam turned off the last lamp, he noticed a fleeting shadow dart past the window. "Did you see that?" he asked, skepticism wavering. "Did see what?" Laura replied, already tucked under her blanket. "I thought I saw something outside," he mumbled, shaking his head. "Probably just a deer." The following morning, Emily came down looking confused. "Mom, did you move my backpack? It was by the door last night." Laura frowned, shaking her head. "I didn't touch it, sweetie." Later, while cooking dinner, Laura heard a faint sound of a child's giggle echoing through the cabin. She paused, knife in midair, heart pounding. "Sam, do you hear that?" she called out. "Hear what?" he replied, focused on a sizzling pan. "It sounded like a kid, like a giggle," she insisted, voice trembling. "It's just the wind playing tricks," Sam said, though doubt crept into his mind. That night, an unsettling tension clung to the air. As they sat around the fire, Jake suddenly stood up, eyes wide. "Look!" he pointed. "The curtain is moving!" Everyone turned, and as if on cue, the curtain billowed gently, despite the lack of a breeze. "It's probably just a draft," Sam reasoned, but the words felt hollow as they exchanged uneasy glances. As they prepared for bed, Laura noticed the bathroom mirror was fogged, but instead of the usual steamy residue, faint outlines of words appeared. "Help me!" Her breath caught. "Sam, you need to see this!" she rushed, voice laced with panic. He entered, looking skeptical. "It's just condensation," he said dismissively, but his heart raced. Before he could turn away, the words seemed to shift, as if pleading for attention. In the ensuing days, disquiet grew. The family experienced strange occurrences, a cabinet door creaking open, fleeting shadows dancing just out of sight, and whispers echoing through the halls. Each time, Sam laughed it off, though his laughter grew more strained. On their final night, they gathered around the fire, the atmosphere heavy with unspoken fears. "What if there's someone here with us?" Jake asked, voice trembling. "Come on, buddy. Don't be silly," Sam replied, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone. Suddenly, Emily gasped. "Look!" She pointed, at the tree line where a faint light flickered like a lantern.
Sam squinted, but it vanished before his eyes. "Maybe it's just a reflection," he suggested, yet doubt gnawed at him. They sat in silence, the woods thick with an oppressive stillness. As the fire crackled, a soft voice floated through the trees, barely audible but undeniably there. "Help me." Laura clutched Sam's arm, and he turned to her, uncertainty etched on his face. "Did you hear that?" Everyone nodded, fear pooling in their eyes. They huddled closer, realizing that their week of rational explanations had unraveled into something inexplicable. The next morning, they packed hastily, the cabin now a place of unease. As they drove away, Sam glanced back, half expecting to see a figure watching from the window. But all that remained was the stillness of Cedar Grove. Weeks later, back home, life resumed its rhythm. But at night, when the wind howled, whispers filled the silence, and shadows seemed to dance just out of reach. "Do you think it was real?" Emily asked one evening. Sam hesitated, unsure. "I don't know, kiddo. Sometimes the mind plays tricks." But deep down, in the corners of their thoughts, they all wondered if something from Cedar Grove had followed them home, and if it had indeed been real after all.